For the past 2 years, Jocko Fuel has been the only supplement I've consumed. It's helped me stay in shape now that my competitive career is finished. If you've been waiting to try Jocko, the wait is over. Jocko has now teamed with Walmart, bringing clean fuel to the entire nation. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all the good stuff and none of the bad. And I'm talking no added sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. Jocko Fuel is now available in Walmart nationwide. Products available at your local Walmart are Jocko Malt, ready to drink, Jocko Malt powder, and Jocko pre-workout. How convenient. Guys, the time is now. Consider trying some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. You can even do it online. Use code CHAEL30 at JockoFuel.com or just stop by your local Walmart and get your hands on some Jocko ASAP. Don't wait, might not last. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Now there's no excuse for not having clean fuel. Guys, I want you to go get Jocko Fuel today at Walmart. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic is an epic fight. Or is it? Or is it? And feel free to answer the question, because you're not the only one stumped. I have noticed the master. I have noticed that Dana hasn't been certain in which direction he's going with this story. And it's a very tricky one. You have the greatest heavyweight of all time. Now many have said that, and that's on Stipe, and they got there with actual numbers. I believe it was that Stipe had defended the belt more times than anybody. I believe that's when we got to Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. That statement was backed with that stat. And then you have the greatest fighter of all time, who has only lost by any reasonable school of thought one time, by me, when I ripped his toe off. And they're talking about revisiting fights. They're talking about a 12-6, and they're going to relook at that. And they relook at that when I threw his toe into the audience and people were screaming in horror. But I would only tell you that, is it an epic fight? Because it's got all the ingredients, doesn't it, guys? I mean, really think about that. Venue is an important thing. I cannot personally relate, but I'm the one on third base wearing a catcher's mitt. Other people can. Madison Square Garden, most historic building, the biggest fights in the world. Great. Live gate is going to be through the roof. I'm going to remove Sphere. I'm going to remove that. I will predict for you this is the largest gate ever. I will predict that for you. I don't have that actual number, but that's not something that the UFC ever brags about ahead of time. They will come in after the fact. That becomes public knowledge. It's done through the commission, which is overseen by the government. It becomes public knowledge. So they come in and they will disclose it to the press conference, but they never really brag about it. And I'm only sharing. You can't get Madison Square Garden. You can't get the biggest gate ever. Even if I turn out to be wrong on that, it's a top one. You can't have that if you don't have an epic fight. Now, the greatest ever versus, right? The greatest heavyweight ever versus maybe the greatest ever who only lost to me. And I say that because the world title's on the line, and there was opportunity for it not to be. There was opportunity, and there was even a bit of a push to strip Jon Jones. This was a fight that was made for March last year? Yes, of last year. That was then rumored for International Fight Weekend of last year by Stipe himself, who never trolls us, and put out the actual artwork with the UFC logo. Do you guys remember this? And it felt like a troll job, which it turned out to be, but it was from Stipe, who never, ever trolls us. I don't know the truth on that to this day. I don't know if Stipe got trolled and thought it was going to happen, but then it gets re-signed. November, Madison Square Garden, and it falls apart. And an interim comes in. And an interim even ends up defending, but they kept the belt on Jon because it was important to get perhaps the greatest ever against perhaps the greatest heavyweight ever. It's got every ingredient, guys. I'm challenging you. What more would you like? What more could you point to a great big historic fight that this didn't have? pausing. I'm wide open to ideas. But, whether this becomes epic or it doesn't have to do with this fight. It has to do with what happens after the fight, the way that this will be remembered, the legacy and the storytelling. Whether you get a record live gate and you get the most powerful man in the world there, doesn't have to do with Stipe being the one, Jon Jones going right, Tom Aspinall being in the front row. It has to do with what happens next, and you cannot get to what's next, which I predict for you. What is next, any which way they do it, what is next is going to be the biggest heavyweight fight ever. That's what I'll predict for you. Now, if that is Jon versus Tom, which is either Jon defending the heavyweight championship or it's Jon fighting for the heavyweight championship. And this is the part that keeps on getting missed, and I'm not totally sure how. You're not going to get Stipe and Aspinall. Stipe is for sure retiring. Now, I get that people have the right to change their mind. I'm telling this to we're as good as the information that we've got, but it's been very consistent by a guy that never trolls us. This is going to be his last walk. Now, whether he beats Jon or doesn't, he's burned his boats. He's put his back against the wall. Some people are going to like that he did that. Some people are going to think that he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. That's all, to my point, going to be seen after the fact. But either way, Stipe walks. If Stipe walks, and I know you've been told many times, if Stipe beats Jon, becomes a champion, and then drops the belt and walks, that Tom becomes champion, that is not accurate. The moment the bell rings for Jon versus Stipe, Jon, your undisputed champion, the moment he returns, the word interim quite literally disappears. There can be no such thing. You cannot have a present champion while having an interim champion, which is why, not when the bout agreement is signed, not when Jon comes back, not when the headlines, not even when they get on the scale, not even the night of the fight, the bell has to ring. But the moment it was, Tom is then stripped. Relevance being, if Stipe was to win and drops the belt, it is not that Tom comes up. It is now a vacated title, of which, obviously, would be Tom versus Jon. And what if it's not? What if that very thing happens? What if Stipe wins, Stipe walks, Jon says, you know what, good idea. Here's your hat, what's your hurry? What if he does? What if he goes back to 205? What if he takes 3 years off? What if it doesn't go Jon into Tom? What if Stipe beats him, vacates? The media all has to come out and finally realize what I'm telling you in the first place, which is we now don't have a heavyweight champion of any kind. We will lose 2 that night. You will lose your undisputed champion should Stipe win. You will also lose your interim champion. You have a double loss, which makes the story better, which is why it's important that they get this right in the very first place. And then 3 months later, there's a big announcement that we're going to fill this for it, and it's Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. No Jon Jones. What if that happened? Do you understand? It's what happens next that decides how big and epic this fight is. You cannot get to the final chapter of the book. You can't get there without this. That's why this is so important. This is why we call this pivotal, but that's why this is so pivotal. All of 2025 for the heavyweight class, the entire story, the entire direction you go. Ciryl Gane, he's got a big fight coming up. Sergey, he got a big fight coming up. He's making a comeback. Aspinall's got a belt. Jones got a belt. Stipe, what's he going to do? Is he going to retire? None of it happens without this. This has to be a piece or the whole house of cards falls apart. And that's a tough story to tell. I had a hard time right there. You guys have given me 8 minutes and 23 seconds of your life. I'm having a hard time telling it. We have the best heavyweight ever, evident of the fact of the most title defenses. We have possibly the greatest fighter ever, only to have his toe ripped off and thrown to the crowd one time by yours truly. That should be enough, but it's not. It's not. It's a confusing piece. What took so long? How did we get here? Why is one guy retiring? Why is the other guy fainting retirement? Why has that guy got a belt that you guys keep saying is going to get elevated, which is absolutely against government affairs? I mean, I'm sharing with you. There's the department of the UFC known as Government Affairs, headed by greatest of all time, Hall of Famer Mark Ratner. You cannot have an interim champion. The moment the bell rings, returning your undisputed champion, which means you got a shot. You got a shot to fix things tonight. You also have a shot, for the first time ever at Madison Square Garden, the heavyweight class, to lose 2 belts due to one outcome.